campaigns. Remember that President Uhuru Kenyatta today is heading to Kaloleni in Kilifi, and we have our reporter Chris Tairu there, who's going to be keeping us updated with regard to that. And talking about elections, Liberia is actually set to hold its election. Let's just take a look at some quick facts before I let you go with regard to this particular election in Liberia. Now, of course, the current president is the first elected female president in Africa, Ellen Johnson Sirleaf, and she took over from Charles Taylor, if you remember, back in 2006. So she has been president and she has now completed her 2 terms. Just something about Charles Taylor is that, he was convicted and imprisoned and is actually serving a 50-year jail term in UK for crimes that is said to have committed in neighboring Sierra Leone. Charles Taylor, back in 2003, was actually removed from office by rebels, and that's the time that Ellen Johnson Sirleaf was able to take over power in 2006, and now her term is now over. Let's just take a look at some quick facts also to do with Liberia. Let's just go back to that. All right, so we have some country facts there. And we have about 2.2 million people who have been registered in this particular election. As you can see, Liberia not such a big country compared to Kenya, where we have about 45 million people and 19 million people who were registered as voters. But also looking at another fact there, parliamentary elections are also due to be held in this particular country. Let's move on to another fact there about Liberia, the Liberia election. What are the campaign issues that are being tackled? One, of course, is to promises to tackle poverty. Remember that Liberia remains to be one of Africa's poorest nations, talking about 50% of the population living under abject poverty. So there is that promise by the contenders, who actually are amounting to 20 presidential candidates who are promising that they will be tackling poverty. One other thing, of course, is corruption. Corruption really is like a disease that affects quite a number of African nations, and Liberia is also part of that list. And also looking at stability. Remember that they have been in war for quite some time, and it is until Ellen Johnson Sirleaf took over, that's the time that there was some bit of stability, but right now still a lot to be done. Looking at the Ebola outbreak, now Liberia, if you remember, was one of the countries that was adversely affected by this outbreak. It was one of the 3 West African countries that was badly hit. We're talking about 10,678 cases of people reported to have contracted the Ebola, and about 4,810 people died as a result. So you can see quite a big number there. So those are just some of the country facts to do with Liberia, even as they prepare to vote in another president after Ellen Johnson Sirleaf's term has really come to an end. So that's another country. We'll be looking at that election here on KTN News. So we've come to the end of News Center. It's time now for me to bid you goodbye, but my colleague Lofty Matambo is coming up shortly with Leo Mashinani. He's going to be taking over our coverage in Kiswahili. All the top stories that we've been focusing on for the last 2 hours, he's going to be taking over them, and we'll be bringing you the latest details from